Hi, this is Anthony. Welcome back to my show. When I first started watching YouTube videos, I watched a lot of videos from people that did finance shows. And despite all the D.B. Cooper and Scientology videos that I've done, really my interest is in finance and personal finance in particular, as well as stock investing, and I hope to do some more of those soon. Anyway, on some of those channels, the creators were very honest in breaking down their income from various sources. This is not what a lot of so-called financial gurus do because they're just really selling you courses that may have very little real value relative to the price that they're charging, but that's where they're making their money, not from investing in the stock market and not from investing in real estate. And if you have a course on something, whether it's a course on creating a successful YouTube channel or a course in investing in real estate, there's nothing at all wrong with those. If they're done well for the right people and at the right price, they could be very valuable. Good content creators, especially the ones in finance, really break down how much they're making from YouTube AdSense, from other advertising that they may get directly from an advertiser on their channel. If they have any type of rental real estate, they show income and expenses on that. And they may show the increase or decline in the value of their stock portfolio and other stats like that. For a lot of people, they don't care at all about anything along those lines, but I think that it's interesting for many different reasons. One, if someone is selling you a course on becoming a millionaire because they claim that they're a millionaire, but they have 700 viewers and their channel's not monetized yet, and they don't provide any evidence of actually running a business other than trying to sell a course based on them not actually having the experience that they claim, that can give you an idea on whether you should spend money to buy a course from them. And if there's somebody that's giving any type of stock advice and during an up market all of their investments are in risky penny stocks that are collapsing, then maybe that's somebody that you should be concerned about following their advice. Some people's channels are just about how to get more subscribers, but then when you watch them, their advice is telling you to just put out more engaging content. And lots of things along those lines that are general truths but aren't any type of secrets on hacking your way into monetization success on YouTube. Anyway, I thought today I would just take a few moments to look through some of my stats and then I'll answer some questions and comments that people have written in about. I'm going to go through these stats pretty quickly because I know a lot of people don't really care, but I think that they're kind of interesting to see who is interested in the topics that I cover, and I'll be very clear here. I got my channel monetized on November 24th. It's now the morning of December 15th, so roughly about 20 days. Some of the videos that I've made money on were uploaded before I got monetized, so those views didn't result in revenue when they were viewed prior to monetization. And again, if you look at the survey of over 370 videos that I've done, all the recent ones have been on the post-Scientology world, and in particular the conflict between Smith-Levin and the Aftermath Foundation Board. This type of content may garner lower monetization rates than other types of videos, and in the past I've looked at a wide range of things from historical mysteries and personal finance, and some stock investing, to unsolved crimes like the D.B. Cooper skyjacking case and the Zodiac killer in the late 1960s in California. Anyway, let's jump right in. Here's a screenshot from my dashboard. And I know that a lot of people might assume that content creators are making tons of money. Certainly there are some on YouTube that are making a lot of money, but most of us are not Mr. Beast. You can see that I've made almost $111. Again, that's just in about 20 days, but that comes after probably over 3 years of work and nearly 400 uploads, each of which takes generally a couple hours, and some have taken a dozen or so hours to create. Here's my top video over the past 28 days. I'm not quite sure why they picked 28 days rather than 30 or 31, but that's what YouTube does. And you can see how many views and how long they are and what the average view time on them is. The one at the top with the most views is actually a short, and the thing about shorts is sometimes they can go viral. In this case, this particular one has over 10,000 views. I'm not saying that this is the definition of viral overall, but for me, for my channel, that's viral. That's a lot. And other times I may get 12 views on a short, even if it's something that I think is pretty interesting. Sometimes it's just the algorithm working against you. On this one, you can see that I got 10.4 thousand views because it's a short. They get much lower rates, and so those views only translate to $1.67. Again, I'm going to point out that part of the time that this has been up, it was not monetized, so that can factor into how much I've made on it. And again, with these numbers, I'm certainly not bragging. My purpose here is to simply educate people on actual numbers that some YouTubers are making in case you have the desire to make YouTube videos yourself and work towards monetization. Here's a screenshot of the second most popular video for the past 28 days on my channel. This one was one of my earliest ones that I've done on the Scientology controversy. And again, early on, it was not monetized. If it was, I would have gotten a lot more than the $3.93. But again, this one in particular helped me to get to the point of monetization. As you can see, 99 people subscribed to my channel based on watching this video. And at the time, I had about 850 viewers prior to my Scientology videos. And to get monetized, you need, among other things, to get 1,000 subscribers. So this video put me within 50 subscribers of meeting that goal. And then the third most watched video was one where I talked about Chris Shelton's video about the situation. This one probably was uploaded when my channel was monetized, and so you see from a little over 6,000 views, I made $20.15, which is about 1/5 or so of my total YouTube income so far. And from my comments on that video and what I've seen in other places, Chris Sheldon certainly is a lightning rod within the ex-Scientology world, especially among Aaron Smith-Levin and his supporters. There's a screenshot of the fourth most viewed one with 3.5K, and this one made $11.37. And just so you know, different types of content would get different rates of AdSense. So if you're talking about personal finance, it might be $4 per 1,000 views. If you're doing pranks, you may be getting tens and tens of thousands of views, but the rate might be $1 per 1,000. So a channel that hosts comedic scenes or pranks could be seen by a lot of people, but make less money than somebody talking about how to effectively utilize credit card air mileage programs, which would get higher rates. And then there's a shot of the fifth most watched one with 2,355 views. It's made $10.19. So roughly these are making about $3 per 1,000, which was actually higher than I feared that they might be making. Here's a screenshot showing the most popular videos and indicating that there's a high retention rate among viewers returning to watch other videos. And then over on the right hand side, it shows videos that my audience is watching. And of course, growing up in Scientology with Aaron Smith-Levin is on the top. The next one down is Down the Rabbit Hole, which doesn't surprise me. I've referenced that particular video in one of my videos analyzing it and then talking about it on a number of occasions in subsequent ones because I think Aaron brought up a lot of important information, and this was the first one where he really went into in-depth in it. The next one is The Lifeboat. Check out that one. I think that his interview with Aaron is important, but be sure to watch the whole thing. And I've done a video about that, but I think for many people, some of the life lessons that Captain Tommy of the Lifeboat discusses might be valuable for you. And for some people, perhaps not, and then don't watch it. Find another channel, but I do appreciate Captain Tommy's radical honesty on his channel. The next one is Relatable Reese. I haven't really talked about her, but great for her. I haven't seen her and Aaron do anything together recently, at least just the two of them. I'm not sure why. There's been a couple group videos that Aaron has done with a few of his friends, so she may have been in some of those recently. I need to get caught up on those. But she does have a lot of interesting things to say from her perspective as an ex-Scientologist. And then there's Andrew Gold, who is very successful on YouTube, has a lot of viewers, and tries to present himself as a serious journalist, but a lot of people don't see him that way. I have my own personal opinions, especially after an interaction that I've had with him where he was quite snarky towards me, but that's for another day. Now, if you watch any content creators, they'll tell you, please hit the subscribe button. It doesn't matter if it's for me or if it's for Aaron Smith-Levin. We still remind people every day. Now, obviously, we want to get at least 1,000 people subscribed, and 4,000 hours of view time so that we can get our channels monetized. I've already done that, so great. Thank you, everyone. But certainly the more people subscribing, the more it helps the algorithm show people our videos, and the more it helps us financially. Again, for most people who have monetized channels, they're making below minimum wage for their effort, which is perfectly okay. I'm thankful that we have this platform to use, and nobody is forcing anyone to make YouTube videos. If you wanted to make more money, just go out and get a second job. Anyway, as Aaron has said, and everyone else on YouTube has said, only about 10% of the people who watch videos actually hit the subscribe button. And not surprisingly, this is true for mine. 11.8% of the people as of last night were subscribers, while 88.2% of my viewers have not subscribed. Then there is the age and gender page. Currently about 70% of my viewers are self-identified as female, while about 30% identify themselves as male. This doesn't surprise me since I've done so many videos about the ex-Scientology world. But I'll tell you, when my videos dealt with stock investing and unsolved crime cases, my viewers were something like 96% male. And then here's a breakdown of ages, which isn't too surprising. Here's the thumbnail breakdown of the top 5 countries. Again, nothing unusual here since my content is in English and primarily is topics of interest to people in the United States and other English-speaking countries. But it is interesting to delve deeper into other countries. It's kind of fun to see throughout the world dozens or hundreds of people in various countries were intrigued enough by my terribly done handmade or homemade thumbnails to click on a video and watch any of it. If you're like me, and I'm statistically similar in age grouping to my viewers, probably the only thing that you know of the internet prior to the early to mid-1990s was the movie War Games, which I think came out in 1984, where the only thing anyone knew about the internet was that you could accidentally start a nuclear war if you're not careful and start trying to hack NORAD computers. Anyway, I think it's amazing that this platform exists where you can upload for free, and if you get enough viewers, you can even make a little bit of money. But you can communicate your ideas with people in just about every country outside of perhaps North Korea and China. And lastly, as we look at the stats, I think it's kind of funny that I got 11 views each in Argentina, Cambodia, and Poland. In Argentina, the average view duration was 1 minute 26 seconds. My average view duration of viewers in Cambodia was only 8 seconds, leading me to think that most were not English speakers and perhaps were just intrigued by one particular thumbnail and quite quickly exited out of that. And lastly, Poland, also having 11 views, there was an astonishingly high average view duration of nearly 5 minutes. Okay, there's a screenshot that shows how the money is broken down from various advertising sources. And then the last shot concerning statistics is from Social Blade, which is a very interesting site. It scrapes information from various social media, but in particular YouTube, and this is the one for mine. It isn't always very accurate. It's just estimating revenue, which, as you can see for yourself, whether you think based on my actual statistics, which I've provided. And by the way, YouTube shows me revenue numbers that, my understanding, are delayed by 2 days. And obviously, over time, I've looked at my Social Blade profile, and there does seem to be a lag on those figures also. It doesn't necessarily update all of the figures every day. Someday I may decide to look at the Social Blade profiles of the various SPTV channels. In one video that I did recently, I looked at Aaron's stats. So I hope for most of my viewers those stats weren't too boring. I've tried to go through them pretty quickly, but I think that it's important for creators to be transparent, open, and honest about things if they're going to put themselves out as a public face of accurate information. So many people who have eventually been shown to be not forthright or truthful on things, when you go back and watch their videos, there's all kinds of little red flags here and there that people may not catch. But if you were looking carefully and listening to how they phrase things, sometimes you see that they were trying to be deceptive to some degree. And we see that with poor Aaron Smith-Levin. Sometimes that can backfire, even when you're doing it for why you think are important reasons. Let's look at a couple comments that I've gotten from people recently. Here's one that says, I'm just curious, do you feel that being raised in a cult wouldn't affect someone throughout their adult years as well? Not making excuses for anyone at all, but a person's formative years being spent in a high control group would have to affect them in some way, in my opinion. If that person lost family members as a result, I would think so even more. I think anyone would be seriously affected by that, just my opinion. So yeah, that's the subject of many of my videos. Can traumatic experiences in a cult lead to future problems? I think most of us would say so. But did Aaron's experience in Scientology lead to the escalating bad behavior that he has admitted to have taken place for the past 4 or 5 years, which eventually led to his ouster from the Aftermath Foundation? That's really the question that people are interested in this, and it's very controversial. If you've watched many of my videos, especially the most recent ones, I go into almost excruciating detail based on what Aaron Smith-Levin himself has said, looking at the various things which he has done, some of which the board of the Aftermath Foundation knew about or found out about, and some I think he's brought up recently that nobody knew about. But as I point out, Aaron has been out of the Sea Org since 2006, and it's now almost 2024. Now, he may have officially been still a Scientologist so that he and his wife could still maintain relations with their Scientologist relatives, but eventually he was, at least in effect, declared as a suppressive person. After the time that he left the Sea Org and prior to him getting declared, did he still believe in much of Hubbard's teachings? Probably not. I'm sure that he's addressed this, and I don't think that he really considered himself to be a believing Scientologist at that point. So my argue is that it's been a number of years since he left the cult, and in that time he did not seem to have the problematic public behavior until, as he points out, about 4 or 5 years ago. I think that being in a cult can cause one to have all kinds of problems, but I think that they're going to be problems that manifest themselves immediately, not 15 years later. In particular, if you watch the video that he did with Captain Tommy of the lifeboat, which I analyzed in the video prior to this one, Aaron goes into great detail concerning issues of him drinking and taking psychedelic mushrooms. And Captain Tommy, who seems to be a drug addiction expert, doesn't seem to think that Aaron has an addiction to either of those two substances. But Aaron does point out that when he gets into trouble, it's when he's been drinking. He doesn't always get into trouble when he's drinking, but in the instances where the police get called to bars, or this most recent one in Los Angeles, he was drinking. And Aaron stated in that video, probably multiple times, that when he drinks to get drunk. He doesn't drink because he likes the taste of beer. Again, I don't think that he has an addiction problem to alcohol. I think at least up until recently, he had a problem with making extremely poor choices that have potentially severe consequences. Do people who have never been in cults drink and sometimes get into trouble? Yes. The world is full of non-ex-cult members who get drunk and get into bad situations. And can we find a plethora of former cult members, former Scientologists, who don't seem to have gotten into the types of trouble that Aaron has gotten into? In my videos, I look at the key players. Claire Headley is not getting into the situation that Aaron has gotten into on multiple occasions. We all know that Mark Headley, after he left with no experience or very little experience with alcohol, drank too much and passed out on the lawn one time. And Scientology tried to humiliate him with pictures of that, and he proudly shows it on his channel. And I think many people, when they get to a point in their life where they first drink alcohol, might have a situation where they're not familiar with it and drink too much. Has there been even one whiff of evidence in nearly 20 years since then that Mark Headley has had a drinking or a substance problem of any type, that he's made any type of risky personal decisions? Not that anyone's brought up to me. How about Mike Rinder? Obviously somebody who has doled out a lot of pain while he was in the upper management of Scientology, but also somebody who suffered most of his life within that high-demand cult. I'm well aware of the ambush incident with family members outside of a medical clinic that Scientology orchestrated against him. But what's the evidence of any bad behavior perpetrated by Mike since he left Scientology? Nothing that anyone has shown. How about Reese? How about apostate Alex? How about Jackson? These are all people who, to different degrees within their experience within Scientology, have likely experienced things which have stuck with them to this day, that have given them issues that they're constantly working through. But it doesn't cause them to just go wild and make bad decisions. Bad decisions are made by people, generally, who just make bad decisions. And it may result from making a bad decision to take a substance into their body that then leads them to making bad decisions that they wouldn't otherwise. But I think that we need to be careful when we're blaming it on a cult, when you can find plenty of other people who have been in a cult that don't make the same chain of bad decisions. And you can probably find 500 million people in the world who have never been in a cult who still make similar bad decisions to the ones that Aaron made. I know that it's human nature to want to find one reason why something happened, especially if we can turn the person into a victim, because I think that our society is trying to move away from personal responsibility and turning people into victims, and that doesn't help when they're not truly innocent victims. That's giving people a pass so that they don't get the tough love that they need to change their behavior. If you really want to know the reason why Aaron has done these things, it's because he's trapped in a marriage that was prompted by his relationship to Scientology, but one where, in the end, there seems to be little or no love. Again, I can tell you all about people who have never been in a cult but ended up marrying somebody that in the end they found out that they had very little common with, and the love disappeared. And that can make you miserable. And what do miserable people do instead of trying to work through the problems and sometimes agree to get a divorce? Sometimes miserable people go to bars and get drunk and hang out with people that they shouldn't. And I know that Aaron has pointed out that he and his wife had an agreement that he could live a bachelor lifestyle, and I cast no moral judgment over that. I think to a degree that was a good agreement to come to, rather than him just sneaking around behind his wife's back. And I understand why Aaron put off getting a divorce for so long, because he feared that it would look like Scientology won, or various other reasons that he's brought up. And now he has finally addressed the issue and said that he and his wife recently discussed formalizing a divorce. And great for him. And I understand where he's coming from. I put off my own divorce for a long time. Longer than I should have, but that's what life is. A series of mistakes, but hopefully ones that you learn from. So it's understandable that Aaron felt trapped in this limbo of staying formally married and publicly claiming so on his channel, while in fact, with the agreement of his wife, being able to live separate and live what he termed the life of a bachelor. But if you're going to do that, as a very public critic of the Church of Scientology, as well as a former city council candidate, people are going to keep an eye on you. And we know that at the Cigar Lounge incident, or when it happened, he was a city council candidate. And that showed some very poor judgment on his part in that incident. And I think that what Aaron brings up in his interview with Captain Tommy, he started to say, but then he stopped, and Captain Tommy basically answered the question. Why did he hook up with this crazy woman in Los Angeles? It's because he's a man and he was looking for intimate relations with somebody that he admitted in that interview that he knew that she had issues with getting kicked out of the courtroom twice. And I believe he referenced her getting kicked out of bars or restaurants twice prior to that incident. So he knew that she had personality issues. But he wanted to hook up with her. And it's a thing some guys do. I get it. Some guys go after crazy bad girls. Some women go after crazy bad boys. It's human nature. It's not all that unusual. But it's not necessarily a responsible thing to do for various reasons. And it's not something that only people who have experienced trauma from being in a cult or from trauma from some other source. It's really more hormones than trauma in most cases. So that's my answer, and I've addressed it in a number of videos. But the commenter brings up some good points, and it's certainly the ones that people on many occasions have brought up. So thank you. And I want to be clear, I'm not saying that he doesn't have trauma. I think that being in a cult or being in any type of high demand group can leave you with long lasting issues. I could see that if you were somebody perhaps in Aaron's position where he had a lot of power within his local org when he worked in it, and what he said had to be followed. When he leaves Scientology, he has to interact with his spouse or his children or perhaps other people. He can get triggered or frustrated or angry if what he says isn't carried out or if people disagree with him. Neither Aaron nor I have been in the military, but I've spent a lot of time thinking about service members coming back from America's various overseas wars in the last 20 years. And while I can't put myself in their frame of mind, what I do know is that if I'd been overseas on multiple tours and I had a spouse and children that I came back to in the United States, it would be so difficult to reintegrate myself into that relationship with my wife just because of the different experiences that we've gone through in those intervening years. So I'm not at all minimizing anyone's trauma or long-lasting issues. I just caution people against coming up with an easy solution of, oh, that's trauma from Scientology, rather than it's a horny man in a midlife crisis making poor decisions, especially when consuming alcohol. And in many of his self-reported stories, when there were, depending on the location, illicit non-pharmaceutical substances being consumed. Okay, let's look at one last comment. And this comes from somebody who is literally one of my most prolific commenters, as one can see by the blue box with the heart in it next to their name. They say, seems like you're beating a dead horse. His supporters are his supporters and his detractors are his detractors, and nothing said is going to sway anyone. Aaron has moved past all this. He did that video because of all the speculation about his drug use. Aaron is back and doing his thing, and any videos made about this is getting old. Okay, I agree with you. This is a dead horse that I would love to move beyond, although a lot of people are still interested in these videos and commenting on them. But I think we are starting to get away from them to a degree. You say that his supporters are his supporters and his detractors are his detractors and nobody will change their minds. I think that that's generally true, but I've had a number of people, and if you look through all the comments in all my videos, there are people here and there who say that I've changed their mind. And again, I'm not trying to change anybody's mind on thinking that Aaron is great and the board is bad, or that the board acted properly and Aaron is terrible. In my mind, and not everybody agrees with me, but I think that everybody involved are good people trying to do what's right, although sometimes they make poor decisions. I think Aaron has made a number of poor decisions, and I hope at this point he has finally learned the lessons. But as he's pointed out, until the Los Angeles incident, he had not learned the lesson. I think that the board might have dealt with some issues better, but eventually some action had to be taken. And people are moving on, especially Aaron. I think that it's positive that he's moving on with the divorce so that things can be publicly severed, hopefully in a very respectful way. And I hope that he has a great relationship with his children and a civil one with his ex-wife. I really do hope that he's successful in creating a new foundation, and I hope that he no longer repeats any of the bad behavior which he's self-reported in his videos and other videos that he's been interviewed on. But he's going to need to make sure that he does not put himself into dangerous situations, especially where he's drinking and consuming what in some cases are illicit substances. He's the one with the track record since leaving Scientology, but fairly long after leaving, of some very bad behavior. And I've answered all of that in previous questions, so I won't say any more. But I do hope that he's learned his lesson so that he doesn't make the same mistake with the new board and the new foundation and his new life. And lastly, yes, he had to make the video with Captain Tommy to address his drug use issues because he himself brought them up on the interview with Rabbit. So come on, people. I mean, if you're going to address an issue one of potentially harmful and certainly illegal use of some substances in various parts of the United States where they're not necessarily legal to consume, and consuming it in Colombia on a boys' trip there, in addition to a string of incidents involving alcohol where police are called, or where police almost were called and you almost ended up in the emergency room, then people are going to start wondering whether you have a problem or not. Again, I'm glad that he went on Captain Tommy's show, and at this point, based on what Aaron has said, I don't think that he has a substance abuse problem, but I think he has a poor judgment making problem that hopefully he is now able to rectify. I'm going to end it here. I do appreciate everyone if you've made it this far. It's easy to say that this is beating a dead horse, and it kind of is, but it's important to a lot of people. Aaron has a lot of supporters, and some of them would support him no matter what he does, but a lot of people are concerned that this person that they deeply care about is making potentially poor decisions, and they want him to avoid further problems for his own sake. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Please do so. It just takes a second, and I do appreciate it. And hopefully you'll hit the like button, and even if you don't like this video, clicking the like button is a small strike against David Miscavige and Scientology. And be sure to leave comments. You and I may not agree on things. We may agree on part of what you say and disagree on others, but at least we live in a country and have a platform where we can hopefully have a civil dialogue between each other on these issues that we find important. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We'll see you soon.